Welcome to another empowering session of our live stream here on this amazing, beautiful, sunny day. I am so excited for today's episode of the Empower Hour for Changemakers. We have a truly remarkable guest who is going to share insights and showcase the power of branding in today's competitive landscape. So, welcome, Ignacio. Let's get started by having you introduce yourself. And remember, this is a live show, everyone, and we're here to help you. So, please be sure to share your questions.
Yeah, so to start, my name is Ignacio Chehade. I come from Chile, that's way southest country in South America. I have been here in Canada working and doing things in marketing for the last 2 years. And most of my career has been a weird jump from different sides. I started from the technical part, working on blogs and forums I mean, 20 years ago. Then I moved to actual media and I started working for media outlets, TV, radio, and newspapers. Then I moved to agencies. I work as a strategic head of strategy and head of planning for different agencies, including DDB. That's one of the international ones that I can name. And then I moved to be the client, and I started being the client the last maybe 8, 10 years, and I have been directing digital and e-commerce experiences for companies as L'Oreal when I was in charge of all the luxury brands, for startups, from finance, from delivery tech, from different types of company. And right now, I'm doing mostly consulting and fractional work for a couple of startups in Argentina, in Chile, and in Mexico. And I am VP of Business Development in the American Marketing Association, more specifically in the Toronto chapter. So that's the big version of me. I work a lot with AI. I love innovation. Most of what I do is more connected to innovation even than to marketing. I like thinking of marketing in the old way, not just advertising, but what you can actually do to make a company grow. And that's, I think, the quick version of it.
Yes, I love that. I've up until now I had never met a fractional CMO, so I love that you are sharing that with our audience as a very viable career, and
Absolutely.
certainly you've been very successful in that. And I know when we chatted yesterday, you were very passionate about how liberating that type of career is, because you can work anywhere and really make some impact in your
Yeah.
career. So
It has
um,
it has its good things, but it also has bad things, and it's important people know both.
absolutely.
The freedom that it gives you to have impact in more than one business is amazing. When you are senior enough in marketing or in any area, your value is not more about how many hours are given to the company. It's about your vision and your structure and the way that you understand the potentialities of different projects and different markets. So it starts making sense to give fractional time to a company and provide them with value, even if you're not full time working with them. And that's fun for me as the person that does it, but it's also valuable for small companies that can't pay for a high price CMO or a person with 10, 15, 20 years of experience, especially startups. So they can have a junior team and have a fractional senior person that is going to lead and develop their team and make them grow. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. So what is the downside?
The downside, yeah, I said that in the beginning. The downside is that, well, if you're passionate about the things that you do, and that happens to most of us, you never stop thinking of the projects that you're managing. So even if I'm giving 30 hours to a company a month and 10 to another and 40 to another, it's never that. You give more. And also, when you're working with different clients and different companies and different countries at the same time, you start getting complex schedules. You have freedom,
Mm.
yeah, but for example, until last year, I had a client in Australia. So that means that from time to time I had meetings at 4 a.m. and I had to
Ooh.
understand that that was the time for them because it was not just meeting with one person. It was a board of people working on a specific project. So I couldn't make them adapt to me. I had to adapt to them. But
Right.
you get used to it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talk to different business owners, and I always feel bad because they have to get up at like 4 in the morning to take calls and whatnot. But here in Canada, I think that our West Coast friends experience the same challenges because a lot of business takes place on the East Coast, so they have to adapt their schedules to meet with the East, and so that can be exhausting, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about the power of branding for startup success and the strategies that we can implement in order to be successful. So, uh, with, of course, you have a personal brand and you work with startups and you have corporate experience. So, what inspired you to focus on brand driven strategies in your work with startups and professionals?
Well, I started a lot of time ago, mostly working on the media part of the ecosystem that is marketing. So I first started working. I had my own media outlet. I when I was 18, I created a independent digital newspaper, and I had up to 60 people writing on the site. This was way before Instagram, even before Facebook, in terms of South America. And I learned that projects and the things that you do work way better when people trust you, not only the project that you're building.
Mhm.
And to trust you, they need to know you, not just the project itself. So as I started trying, doing exercise and test and learn about what things made sense for me. So I built a Twitter persona, for example. In that time, I'm talking again before everything else, and even not being a famous person or a celebrity, I had a good number of followers. I got up to 14,000, something like that. But what it worked for me was the engagement level. I realized that every time that I was pushing projects, even projects that weren't mine, but showing projects of different people, the fact that people already trust my appreciation of that project make them get value from it. So then I took all this learning and I started to offer it to other people. So I work with politicians, I work with TV hosts, I work with actors, and I started helping them, trying to not just write for them. I mean, everyone can be a ghostwriter for a famous person or for a corporate leader, but how can I give them the understanding and the tools to be able to build them for themselves? Today
Mhm.
most of the people do it and think they know. And this is the weird thing about communication in general. You're not going to discuss to a lawyer what he knows, because you know that you can compete with the knowledge that he has. But when we're talking about communication, everyone thinks they know better. So that's like the tricky part of trying to show them with results and with facts that the experience that you have actually makes sense to their personal brand or for their company to grow. And that pushed me into, I started first with people that just wanted to push their own name, but then I realized that that was also a thing that was lacking in companies. I work for big companies that put a lot of time and effort into branding. For example, when I work in L'Oreal, most of the brands are international brands that know really well how to build and a strategy and a voice. But when you work with smaller brands, especially startups, most of the startups, especially technology startups, they think that the product should talk. Like it's product driven growth, most of them, and I get
Mhm.
it. It's normal when you're trying to build a structure, a company that has nothing before it, and you have most of your people trying to rework the product that you have. But on reality, even the best products are part a brand. A company has a brand as an asset, an asset that is important to grow. And usually startups don't do it because they truly believe that if they push all their manpower into having the best product possible, the product will be successful, and that's not true.
most of the successful brands, even when they have the best product possible, they are successful when they become recognizable and memorable brands, even if you have the same exact product as the competition, because everyone will think that their product is special. Everyone loves their own baby, everyone thinks that their baby is the prettiest one. But when you think of it as a consumer, you kind of are able to see that maybe two or three companies are offering you kind of the same with small changes,
Mhm.
and you decide which company to use, mostly because of emotional decision. Most of the studies have shown that depending on the category, from 30% to 60% of the decision making goes not by the actual use of the product or the rational reasons to get a service or a product, but actually they come from emotional reasons, and emotional reasons are built with a brand. So it's a huge mistake. I have seen it mostly in Latin America. I hope that we have some people seeing this, maybe the recording or maybe live from there.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of development in terms of growth, in terms of structures of growth and development of products. But at the end, some of the companies or most of the companies fail because they didn't do the final push to actually have a memorable brand, a memorable relationship with your clients.
Yes. It's important that we don't talk at people, but that we join their what keeps them up at night and not what keeps us up at night, right?
Yeah.
So some really great insights there. Um, so how do you think that branding and some of the insights that you've shared has evolved in today's digital and globalized market? I think you did touch on it, but maybe you could
Yeah.
expand on that.
Right now, I do believe that, and this is going to be maybe weird, but people that work on this will get it. Even if branding is way older than the performance structure that most of the marketing teams have right now, or the companies have right now, uh, branding has been left to the side. Like people feel that branding is or brand efforts are a waste of money, a waste of time, a waste of money, especially when I'm trying to build a business. And the business part has been completely disconnected to what brand positioning is. And brand positioning is money. I do believe that this has happened globally mostly because of how digital tools and digital measurements have developed in the last 10, 15 years. Every year we have more ways to measure everything. But
Mhm,
every time that we think we have a better understanding of measurements, when you go deeper into the tunnel that is actually understanding KPIs and the digital connection between different numbers and how the journey of clients happen, you start realizing that you don't know anything. Like there is a lot of things that you can measure. People have been fighting about understanding the ROPO, the relationship between research online and purchase offline, for the last 10 years. And they have been working on attribution models also for the last 10, 15 years. And even if some companies believe they have the right one, they usually change it every 4 or 5 years because they know that they don't have the entire picture. That's why we keep building brands. That's why we keep having TV and we keep having physical events and we keep having them. It's not because of the direct result that you get from them. It's because when you don't have it, you don't do it. You see that your brand actually goes down,
mhm,
it's hard, especially again for startups that every penny is important for them. But if you want to have a bigger picture and trying to understand how your brand is going to be on a bigger market, especially when you're trying to build something that is going to be happening across different countries, and that's one of the categories that I work the most, companies that are trying to be international,
right.
you start seeing that performance structures are not enough. Yeah, they can bring you to a growth structure, but they are not enough to do the big jump.
Yeah, that is so true. And just speaking about today's digital changes in the world, obviously AI has made a big impact. Uh, but, you know, majority of people don't know how to use these tools properly, let's be honest. And so it ends up bringing marketing and promotions that are very generic, right? Everyone puts in the same prompts and they spit out the same very boring, basic, no point of view concepts and strategies when they're not doing it properly. And those that do know how to use the tools and tweak it can really be helpful to building amazing brands and gives you that time and energy to focus on the things that matter, like sales and whatnot. So what's your opinion on that? Because I know that you have a lot of experience in AI, and you probably seen a lot of really bad AI branding. So what's your
Yeah,
opinion on that?
I think that uh, we have to start from the most important part. AI is a tool. It's not a member of your team, and that's one of the biggest issues that I have seen. A lot of companies believe that they can use AI to avoid people decision and people's strategy, and that's not true. AI is an amazing tool to use to create a better streamline of the process of what are you going to create, but you need to be smart about what you're doing. In my
Mhm.
experience, most of the mistakes happens when people are training their tools. Now I'm not talking about specifically using just ChatGPT and ask a question. I'm
Yeah.
talking about, and this is even before that building the prompt. Most of AI works, well, every large language model works using what is more common. Like it take a big chunk of information and said, okay, this repeats more and this repeats less. So if you want to get innovation, you're not going to get it from a normal query. It's going to give you the most broadened potential answer that is going to be effective with the question that you're doing. So training tools with good information, with good data, with good structure of thinking before even using them is the way that you get actual results. And this is just in the main level of having a conversation with the tool. But then the other thing that makes, especially startups, use AI correctly is understanding that just asking questions and getting responses is the first level of what you can do with them. Most of the
Mhm.
work that is being done right now works using APIs and trying to connect different tools with AI. That AI is not the center of the process; it's just part of a journey. So, for example, you can connect a CRM tool and not just throw the same email to everyone
Mm.
48 hours that after you leave, I don't know, a shopping cart. But you can actually use the information of what was in the shopping cart and the information that you previously has, for example, the source of the visit or the times that the person had visited your site, or if the person is actually a client or not, to make the AI tool rewrite and create something personal. I have used it, for example, to optimize sales funnels, even with sales agents. Like I prefer to have a sales agent that has a script that is driven by all the conversation that he already has with that potential client than a
Mm.
person that is starting from scratch every time that they have a call with the same person, you know. And you can do that using AI, but it's about how you use it. I have seen a lot of people saying that the results that they get are crap, but it happens because they are using it in the most basic level. It's like, and you see this a lot with technology. People believe that technology is bad because when they try without knowledge, they didn't get the result that they wanted to have. But when you learn how to actually use them, you get amazing results.
Oh, I love how you talk about that, how you can really be impactful in the sales funnel and using that data and information that you have to your advantage. So brilliant, brilliant strategies there. So what do you think are some of the common branding mistakes that you see startups and marketers make, and how can they avoid them?
First of all, don't actually not doing branding. That's the biggest
Yeah.
one, and you know it sounds weird, but it happens so much and so frequently. Most of startup companies don't care about the name. They don't care about the logo. They don't care about the positioning of the brand. They just care about the performance. How many people are we getting this specific cohort? How much retention I'm having? What is my churn rate? There are numbers that are super important to have a efficient uh, business working. But if you leave branding for a later moment in the process, you will actually never do it. I have seen this way too many times. People say, no, I will focus the first 6 months in fully in product development and optimization, and then I will do some performance using media, but only I will do it if it gives me money back. And then in 2 years, if this works, I will start building my brand. And that's actually too late. Like you really need to understand that even your early adopters of anything that you will be selling, if it's software or if it's an actual product, they have to create a relationship with you. So their
Mm.
experience with your brand, and this happens not just in user experience and on after sales engagement with the clients, but how they feel about saying that they use your brand. How sure are they that they share your principles? How sure they feel to tell people, you know what, I'm 100% aboard on this brand, and I love to say that I use it. You can see it, for example, with bigger companies right now, even if they are tech companies, when you see people talking about how much, for example, they love Canva. Canva was built mostly on top of user engagement, and they didn't invest too much in branding in the first years, but they did invest in building an amazing brand that people wanted to use. Even if the product was good enough already, they are always working on making the product better, but they are also working on making the brand experience amazing. You want to say that you work with Canva, you have a good time using the tool. So the branding of a company that is not even trying to do outreach, trying to get people in, is still developed. They have a vision of what Canvas was from scratch. And that's important because if you don't do it from the beginning, you get tools that have no soul and you feel like you can replace them. As soon as something better comes out, you're going to replace it because you have no emotional attachment with the tool or with the software, with the company, with the product. You know, that's the
Yes.
biggest
Oh,
mistake.
yes. Oh, what a great concept to talk about. I talk about in my course at York about how a really good marketing strategy from especially software companies is that they make it fun, right? They make you feel good about yourself as you're using that software. So an example that I shared recently was with LinkedIn. So here we are on LinkedIn Live, and shout out to LinkedIn. Love LinkedIn, great community. If you're not on LinkedIn, so of course we have visitors and listeners and watchers that are connected on Facebook and YouTube and all of the channels that we're all familiar with. And but as far as I'm concerned, LinkedIn is the best because you get the most. It's like a database rate sorry it's a database waiting to help you land opportunity, and it's a place where you can learn and grow and share and connect, and you have a lot of really great data that you can activate with. And what
Yeah,
LinkedIn does is it's always prompting you to help you use it better. And so for years, it was always saying, and it kind of annoyed me to be quite honest. Oh, your profile's 50% filled out. Anyway, long story short, eventually I got to the point in the last few weeks where it says your your profile is perfect. You're utilizing all of the features, all of the benefits of how you have your profile set up, and that took me years to get to that point. But it's celebrating my success. It's keeping track of how I'm using it and how beneficial it is for me. And I really love the fact that software can make you feel good and also inspire you to do better.
yeah.
So,
And depending on the category of what you do in life, like what is your core business, even
mhm.
other social media platforms are maybe even better depending on the category what you're doing. So, for example, a lot of tech people are mostly doing things and networking and creating value on X and also Medium. Medium is an amazing content platform that almost
Yes.
everyone is using because it's super easy to monetize. They have an integrated way of getting money from whatever you're doing, and it's amazing. But also even TikTok, like I have seen amazing structures of content for specific categories of business. So actually AI tools, innovation development that are being shifted to actually doing content, especially for TikTok, and mostly because also new generations are using that way more than LinkedIn and way more than X.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because you can build value on any tool. The important thing is trying to understand what is the fit of your product, even if you are your product, but what is the fit of your product with the potential channels? And people usually just do the product market fit, like try to understand what what I'm. For example, if you are a person that creates, I don't know, trainings on marketing, just thinking of my example,
Mhm.
I create things that I think that the market will need, but I also need to understand where are the people that will probably take my product, and maybe they are not on LinkedIn. Even if most of the marketers are on LinkedIn, because the amount of knowledge that there is there, maybe I need to be elsewhere. Maybe I need to be on TikTok. Maybe I need to be on live events. Maybe I need to have a good newsletter and try to approach them a different way. So understanding the fit of your product and your channel is also important for your brand.
Yeah, and connecting with the channel that is where your community hangs out. So
Yeah,
I love that you brought up Medium. We were talking about in my class yesterday. We're talking about Medium and we were talking about Substack and about how these communities are disrupting how we do business. And we were even talking about how maybe newsletters or newsletter software might become obsolete and be replaced by having your communications within the platform where the people are hanging out. So, for example, LinkedIn has a newsletter. A lot of companies are using, if you go onto Reddit and you ask for some strategies around using Medium or Substack, they talk about how, at least with Substack, you could almost use that as your newsletter. And the bonus of that is that it doesn't cost you anything
yeah,
because the platforms are free right now. That always changes, obviously. I just noticed Twitter or X has made it so that I can't live stream to X anymore because you have to have a paid account now. And so that seems to be, a lot of these software companies do have monetization built into their platforms, but the smart ones will give cross monetization options. So Medium, um, TikTok, Substack, you have the ability to monetize, and that's wonderful. So
I agree.
tell me, what do you think the definition of branding is? Because a lot of people really don't know what branding means, and there's all kinds of different definitions. I know one of the favorite ones that I hear is, branding is what people say about you when you leave the room. So what does branding mean to you?
Well, there are a lot of technical definitions about branding. For me, more that defining what branding is. The important part is trying to understand what branding means to a company more than what it actually is. And for a company, I always say people get mad at me because I say that everything is a product, like you're a product, your company is a product, your what you do is a product. But yeah, in terms of the market, everything is a product.
Mhm.
And I believe that branding mostly is, and I don't want to sound like too eager to say this is something so complex, but for me, it's the art of making anything memorable and sorry, memorable
Mhm.
and relevant for someone. So you can have any product, you can have even the worst product in the world, but if you have a good structure of branding, someone will think that they are in love with what you do. So branding gives meaning. Branding is mostly meaning that creates a memorable experience for someone. That's
Mhm.
at least my definition.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get some live coaching from you, and just feel free, anyone who's listening, please pop into the chat and post a question. We'd love to help you. You have two marketers here who are passionate about supporting our community, so we are here for you. But I have a question for you. So, you know, my my brand has been very much driven by where I am personally in my life, and evolves based off of how I evolve. And I think that sometimes I may have confused people with where my brand has gone, because I'm following my own passions and what I'm learning and how I'm growing and evolving. And so here right now, just on the top of the screen on the right hand side, you can see that I have the Changemakers business network. And of course, I have been the founder of Women in Biz Network since 2012. But I I think in this day and age, I mean, gender diversity is something that I'm very passionate about. But I think that I need to move past just gender, and I really want to focus on change making and being the best versions of ourselves and being impactful in the world around us. And I really want to support those that believe that that matters. So, of course, I am a female and I'm passionate about supporting other women, but just because I connect with other women doesn't mean that we share the same values. So I'm really trying to move my community towards being values driven. And so I'm taking a risk by positioning my brand in that direction. And so maybe not as nichey. Uh, so what do you think?
Well, I think that you have an interesting position. I do believe the first thing that you have to, this is a live consulting. The first thing that you need to do, yeah, and this is has always been my opinion, even if you are a big part of what your product brand is,
Hmm.
your brand is not your product brand. So you need to have them separated. For one specific reason, you as a person will probably have more than one product. You will have probably more than one project and brand. And
Hmm.
yes, you want your brand identity to cascade into everything that you do, but you don't want your product brand to cascade into everything else you do, because you can have actually different products.
Right.
So building your own brand for you, that probably is going to mean trying to understand what are the core values and the core elements that you can provide people and companies and your business network from your perspective, but that doesn't need to be exactly the core elements and the core values of your final product, for example, your business. So separated them for me is the first part. If you define correctly what you are and what you bring into the table, and from five different topics, for example, three can support your Changemakers business network, and other two may not be completely in connection with that. That too could be relevant for a second product, for a third product. So having a clear identity of you as a brand separated of your product, that is super relevant. As an example, Steve Jobs, when you do brand building and brand building class have been done for a long time. Oh, I see that we have a question, but
Yes,
I will answer just that after this. So
please.
Steve Jobs, when you work on a brand building structure, there is a couple of old school ways of understanding brands that are still relevant today. One of them is brand personas. Personas are the Carl Jung vision of different natures inside a person, and that also applies to brands. There are like 13 different brand personas. So Steve Jobs and Apple, they were super connected, but they didn't have the same brand persona. If you go and see documentation about what Apple is and what Steve Jobs was, they are completely different brand personas that connect with the same type of client, and that is relevant because they can attract the same person from different sides. So Apple was, if I remember correctly, the creator, which is a
Hmm.
specific customer persona, and sorry, brand persona, and Steve Jobs was the magician. And they look similar, but they are not entirely similar. One of it is about uh, building tools and giving you tools to do things differently, and the other one is about making the impossible possible and trying to think broader than the actual creation of something. So you have two brands working for the same goal, and that's selling Apple products. That's what I say that you should do to you. So maybe you have a one brand persona that, again, this is an old way of seeing it, but it applies. So maybe your brand persona, and I will say just like this, maybe can be the queen, the empress. I don't remember how you say it specifically, and it has a specific brand values, and that's about leading, it's about creating protection, it's about nurturing. But maybe your specific brand, Changemakers, can be the rebel. Why? Because the rebel has a different type of inspiration. Or the common person, common man is one specific persona that is about building something for everyone, for everyday the everyday champion, and maybe both of them can build together to try to attract your potential clients. So separating your own person as one brand persona and putting your company or your product as a second one is super important. Most of the big companies right now, especially tech companies, have this huge issue that they create one brand. I don't know, I will call this brand League. I will call this brand League.com. And under that, they have like 10 different products. And
Right.
they don't do branding for each product. They don't build a personality for each product because they say it's not relevant enough. I'm building only for my big brand, and I assume that this is going to cascade for the other brands. And usually that is not how it works. It works
Mm,
in different categories. For example, in beauty, I had experience when I worked in L'Oreal. Every beauty brand builds upon an icon, and it works. An iconic icon, they call it a specific product. For example, in Lancome is La Vie Belle. La Vie Belle fragrance is like a pillar of the brand because every element of La Vie Belle is relevant for the rest of the products of Lancome and connects with the same type of client. Even if you have products for different specific core targets later, you can understand Lancome by understanding La Vie Belle. Usually, new brands don't do that. New companies, they just say, okay, my brand is League, and I have one Changemaker business network, but I also have workshops for entrepreneurs, and I also do live consulting for. And they look similar, but they are not the same product. So you need to be clear that
yeah.
every needs to have an identity, or they need to cascade and have just one.
That's great advice. Thank you. Really appreciate that. So, why don't we move on to this question? So, what, apart from creating company profiles on different channels, defines branding?
Yeah, that's interesting because every time that I do consulting for a company that is starting from scratch, everyone feels like they have to be on every channel. So they have to be everywhere because what's the reason not to be there? Like if I can be on Instagram, I can just take whatever I'm doing and copy it on TikTok. And if I'm writing a blog, I can just take the blog and put it inside LinkedIn, for example. And that's not entirely true because even the same content published in different networks have first a different approach of the person that is receiving it because their state of or the relationship between them and the tool is different. And second, even the nature of each platform is different, even on an algorithm level. So for example, when you publish something on TikTok has two-stage boost content. They have some public information about how the algorithm works. So you publish anything, they push it to a small group of people. Then they see what is the engagement level of this small group of people, and they push it. If it goes over what the minimal needed, they push it to a second group, and so far, and it goes like two or three stages to go like a wild viral content. The same content in Instagram is completely different. The Instagram algorithm prefers to have your content show to people that already follow you and not to people that is following topics. Most of the navigation inside Instagram is about following person, and the algorithm in TikTok is about following topics and understanding your needs. So if you do the same content and you try to have the same strategy as a brand, the same brand identity, they will not work the same in both tools. So you need to have or one of those done differently or just not do it in one that you think that is not going to be relevant. So when you're creating a profile of your company for any potential social media, first you need to understand if what you are doing is going to make sense in the long term on that social media tool, if the nature of how that tool works is relevant to you. So for example, if you're doing and this is a big discussion that I had with friends. I have friends that have well, it's a client, but now for me they're friends. They have a software that needs a lot of training to use, and they wanted to use mostly TikTok and Instagram because they can get more people. And I told them, like, yeah, I get it, but you're not thinking on the biggest issue that you have on both tools, and that is that both tools are super dependent on temporality. So every time that you publish something, that's going to be shown now, not tomorrow. Maybe it's going to be alive in 1 week or 2 weeks, but after
Mm,
2 weeks, your content is going to drop because the algorithms are not working to show it to the people that need you, but they are connecting it to what is new. If you do the same on YouTube, for example, YouTube have a lower short-term impact, but the algorithm on YouTube is super atemporal. If you have a good content, a super specific need of a person that you published 5 years ago, that content is going to be there, and people can relate to the content that you have published 5 years ago, and they will see it on the search engine. Search engines on TikTok and on Instagram, they will completely forget about you in a couple of months. But if you did
mm,
the specific need that your clients need, like how to use this CRM tool, for example, they're going to actually see it right away, super high on YouTube, but not on Instagram and TikTok. So building your identity, understanding the cost of the structure of managing a channel to have your brand completely well developed there is important. If you don't have the structure to manage a TikTok account with the frequency that TikTok needs, it's better not to have it because you will give a bad brand experience to the people that are on that
huh,
social media tool. Yeah, it's better not to have things if you're not going to be able to do it right, because the
right.
relationship of people with your brand is going to be with their main channel. If my main channel is TikTok, and I think that you're a brand that is not active enough, not relevant enough on TikTok, even if you have amazing YouTube and amazing LinkedIn, maybe that's going to be my first contact period with you, and then I'm not going to follow you anymore. So it's better not to be there than to be there and do it badly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So,
I hope we answer
yeah,
did
I hope so too.
your question. I'm not going to try to pronounce your name because I butcher every name, but I hope we did.
So, in your experience, what are the key elements that make a brand trustworthy and memorable?
Depends completely in understanding what is the relationship that your client needs with your brand. This is super weird to explain, but it's easier if I do it with an example. So I was working in a company in Chile called, in that time, Migrante. That's migrant in Spanish. And their core business when they started was giving uh, selling motorcycles, cars, and apartment credits to immigrants that they didn't have enough time in a country to have a credit score that the banks actually believe in. So it was hard for people immigrating to the country to do it. The company was doing very well. I was in charge of global growth for the company, and we expanded to Peru and to Colombia, and we're trying to bring Mexico in. But the issue was, and this is the thing about branding and understanding what the brand connects, that when we started doing the work in Mexico, I had a bad feeling about how the word was going to be understandable and valued in Mexico. So we did a
Mm,
brand study. We hired a small company to do some quantity investigation, a couple of focus groups, and then we realized that for most of the people in Mexico City, the capital, it wasn't an issue. It was perfect. They loved the brand. It had a valuable meaning because you were helping immigrants, and that's good. But when you went outside of the city, where most of the market is, because Mexico has a well uh, develop market in the rest of the countries, not just the city. No, it's not so concentrated as Canada when you have two huge cities and then the rest of the country kind of adapts to that two cities. Most of the people in the rural areas have a really bad relationship with the concept of immigrants because they had too much illegal immigration. The
mm,
states usually think that they have all the illegal immigration from Mexico, but Mexico has a lot of illegal immigration from other Latin American countries. So they they for them it sounded like this was a company helping illegal people, helping bad people on the mind of the locals.
oh,
So we had to understand what do they want from a company that is going to give you credit, because I don't need to be fun, I don't need to be um, cool or being a rebel. I need to be what? Because what is my product? And then we did the investigation and we realized that the core element that the people needed to connect with our brand was trustworthiness. They needed to know that we were a trustworthy, sure, secure, and big company, because they're going to be having a credit with us. They will be going to be related with us for 2, 3, 4 years, and we are not even a bank. So we had to do an entire rework of the brand, and the brand actually changed its names. We had a huge process trying to understand if this was the correct move from the company, and we worked on it for about a year. And the company that was called Migrante changed it to something more flexible, more nonsense, and the company was named then Galgo. Galgo is like a specific breed of dogs, the dogs that do like the races. I don't know what is the name of that dog in English. Greyhound, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yep. Mhm.
and and we did that. Why? Because first of all, we thought about it visually. Galgos are fast, are lean, and are efficient. They are connected with speed, and most of our products are about selling motorcycles and car credits. So credits attached to a product that you were going to be using to work. So people that want to use work on Uber, that want to work on delivery, and they're going to be paying for a product that they need to connect to. And the brand just went completely up. Yeah, we had a couple of months of friction locally, because people that really believe in what they did in the first years, they felt like we were leaving them behind. But
Mm.
in the end, it made us able to attract 4 times the audience that we were attracting before, because we built an identity that was relevant to connect with the biggest market that we had seen, because Mexico is way bigger than Chile and Peru. So what is relevant to connect with people first is trying to understand what are the values and the needs that they have attached to your category. So if you're a brand that wants to be uh, a rebel, for example, if you're working on, and I had the experience working on a telecommunication company, most of the people don't like their telecommunication company. They believe that they usually have the worst or they have a bad experience. So maybe
Mhm.
you're going to build a new one. It's a good idea to be a rebel, because you want them to see you as someone that understands the category is bad, and you want to show them something different. So you can use different values and different elements to share that identity. So you can be a little bratty, you can be a rebel, you can be mad with other brands, you can be more passionate. But if you're a bank, I don't want you to be a rebel bank. I want to be sure that I can trust you with my money. So building an identity that is about trustworthiness is way more important than being just cool and funny. And most of the brands today, the little effort that they do is just trying to be cool and hip on social media. That's not what people need from your brand, you know?
Wow, that's a really insightful answer. And important to know when is the right strategy to implement, and like you kind of alluded to me that my personality shouldn't necessarily dictate the brand and the brand experience, because I'm
think
definitely a
think of it
rebel.
like, yeah, think of it like, for example, when, and this happens also, I one of my first experience working was working on or a network, on a chain of bars in Chile. And I worked directly with the bar owners, and they told me like, we have this amazing place and I love it, this bar. And I saw the bar, and it was kind of empty most of the time. And tell them, but why? No, because I don't know, kids here don't like this like motorcycle cool side of our bar, because I am a person that loves motorcycle. He was a Harley Davidson fan, and he
Right.
has his friends. But I told him, okay, that's that is it's a bar for you, but you own a bar, and you need to understand that you are not the client. So why will be your values the ones that are going to be connected with with the audience? And he said, well, everyone should have a bar on their own style. And I told him, yeah, I completely agree. But have you even did a study about the specific zones when you have your bar? to understand what type of people go to that zone, because you're not going to make people decide to go to a different side of the city when you're in a huge city. You need to understand what people already do in that zone, what they like, what they lack, and build a bar not for you but for them. So yeah, you can be a rebel and you can try to make all your brands rebel, but then you have to think, the people that I'm trying to connect with, do they value being a rebel, or they need a different thing from me? And
Mm.
maybe they don't need that from you. Maybe they need to be feel like you are one of them. Maybe they need to feel like you are the common person, that you understand that everyday needs and problems and pains, so you can actually connect with them and help them work on them. So there are different type of personas that you have to use. But again, that's one side of branding that is super interesting, trying to build on top of nature and personality, and it's super relevant for brands to use. But most of brands today don't do it because they feel that there is no money there. You know?
What I take away from that is it's not about you.
Yeah,
It's about doing the research and
it's about your
validating the
client.
actual facts of who is consuming your brand and what matters to them.
Mhm.
But I think startups, most because they have that ability to be so nimble and change things on a dime, they can get caught up with doing what they think resonates with them and maybe forget what's important to everyone that is consuming that brand. So
Yeah,
thank
even
you for reminding me of that.
a big mistake from startups, and I can share that experience, is that even when you have a data driven team, like a team that is actually focusing to see, looking what the consumer is doing with the product and trying to build on top of that, even them sometimes make a mess, because when you're trying to understand what you have right now, sometimes you forget what you could have. So I'm building all the new software and needs from my app, because I saw that people that use it are saying that I need it. Then I put all my time and effort into that, and they are super happy. But they were not a representative audience of what I could actually get to, and the rest of the audience don't need that. So I put my time and effort into something that, in terms of numbers, look like the obvious thing to do, but on the big picture makes no sense, because you're doing an effort for a super small audience that is not going to be your core product or your core target. So it happens a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So my last question, and then we're going to wrap up with three power moves.
Mhm.
So my last question for you is, for startups looking to scale, what branding strategies should they prioritize to sustain growth and maintain brand integrity?
Well, first of all, they need to have a brand. So to have
Yeah.
brand integrity, you need to build that. And I can't be more annoying saying that, but even if your startup is 5 people, have clarity of what your brand identity is. Even if you're not going to put too much money and time into it, uh, you need to do it. So, sorry, I forgot the final part of the question because I intervened with that.
That's okay, no problem. But that's a really important thing to focus on is first develop it.
Yeah.
Um, and then I said, what are the brand strategies that they should prioritize to
Yeah.
sustain growth and maintain brand integrity?
Mhm. One is understanding branding not just as uh, something that you say, but something that you do. Most of the brands fail because they are all day long saying, I am your friend," instead of doing things that can make the person realize that you are their friend. So doing,
Mhm.
not saying, that's the first big thing that you can do as a strategy. Second, yeah, it's show no tell.
So important,
Yeah.
so important. Mhm.
Second one, it's super important to understand that you are not alone in an ecosystem, that all of your clients are using different tools, different programs. I'm talking about digital mostly, but even on a real actual product, like when you go to a supermarket, people are not going to buy only your hamburgers. They're going to buy bread. They're going to buy ketchup. They're going to buy cheese. So you need to understand that because there are an ecosystem of products and brands, your branding identity needs to be connected to the reality of what is happening outside of you. So you can't just stay as a monolith. You need to be able to understand the ecosystem and change and adapt and create relationships with other products and other brands. You don't want to be the only brand that is creating seven package seven buns packages of bread. If everyone else is doing six, there is probably a reason. So you need to understand of it and try to connect to why things are happening that way and how you connect your product with an entire change of different products and brands. Again, I'm talking about the product, but that happens even more when you're talking about brand. If all the banks are brands about trustworthiness and you're trying to be a rebel, there is a reason why you're not going to connect. Not just because the final client is going to feel unsure, but because banks need to relate with different types of companies. They need to work with point systems. They need to work with companies that are going to have discounts. They need to work with Mastercard. They need to work with different payment routes providers. So you have a relationship with other brands. If your identity breaks the chain of the values of the chain, you're going to be an outsider that is not going to work in the ecosystem. So that's the second one. And the third one is using always data, trying to follow everything that you do with information, not always remembering that you're not building for yourself, but you're building for the rest. So try to follow what is happening with your brand on time and be able to change and understand that your baby is big now and it needs to make its own decisions. So you're not the only one in charge. That's also important.
Those are some really great tips there. Thank you for sharing all of this incredible advice. So we're going to be wrapping things up, and every week, and we're here live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Consistency is important, and for me, consistency is huge because I can get off track very easily. So I need to stay committed to serving my community and doing it consistently. So we will be back with Shay Marvell next week talking about mindfulness and its impact in our career success. And so, can you end this incredible hour with three moves, power moves that our listeners can take um, with their brand strategy in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I will be focusing more into personal and entrepreneurship that big
Sure.
companies, so you can do it. So first of all, there is no issue, there is no pain in actually making mistakes when you're trying things for your own brand. Try everything that you can. There is no actual one way to have a big personal brand or a big entrepreneurship brand. Even if people have told you like there are these three, four steps that you have to do, that's meaningless. Every brand has a different context, so you need to do what you need to do. The important thing is not to fall in love with all your decisions. So you need to be able to say, okay, I
Mm.
try this, this didn't work. I need to do a different thing, and understand that that's just part of the process. That's one thing. The second one, especially for smaller companies, because when it's personal branding is yours, is that every brand effort translates into actual money. And that's important to understand when you're working on a small company. When the CEO thinks that marketing is just about, or branding is about bringing people to buy the product, you need to make them understand that brand value has actual monetary value. And most of the companies have incrementals. There's a thing called brand premium, where you see the average price of a product in the market, and then how much, how higher can you go with your price because of how much people trust your brand and believe in your brand. And companies, depending on the category, can get from 5% in the lower end to up to 30% of actual profit from having a good brand developed, even selling the same product as the competition. So putting things into numbers when you're trying to go to talk with, I don't know, big stakeholders, CEO, investors, is super important to translate that effort into actual money so they understand that it's something that it needs to happen. So putting things in terms of money always helps. And the third thing, and this is something that has worked for me, but depends
Mhm.
on any category. Uh, don't be scared of having big. Okay, it's going to sound weird, but don't be scared of making big mistakes, not just training, test and learn. because big mistakes in terms of the long-term building of a brand are also part of the brand identity. And that's important to understand. There are a lot of brands that have made huge mistakes in the past. We know mostly the big ones. We don't get the small ones. But from failure, not just try to learn, but actual deep failure, they come experiences. People understand and relate to that experiences. So doing that, using a bad color for 10 years and realizing that it was a mistake is part of your brand identity. You can laugh about it. You can tell that you learn about it. You can say a lot of things about that process. So not being afraid of having big mistakes in the process is also important, and try to think of them as learning process into your own branding.
Yeah, and sometimes mistakes end up uh, inventing something new,
Yeah,
right?
getting you to a new route that you knew that you didn't even see. Yeah,
Exactly. And so a startup culture or a company, a corporate company that values failure as an opportunity for innovation and growth and learning opportunities is so powerful. I definitely have found, and I've worked with many different brands and companies over the years, and I 100% will not stay with a company that is fearful of making, like, that will trash you if you make a mistake, because then if you have that culture in your company, then the outcome of that is that no one is willing to try new things, think outside of the box, because all they have in their head is how you're going to react to them. And so
absolutely.
they just won't they won't care enough to take the chance, because they know that you will not take the chance on them should it not turn out to be the way you hope it would. So I think that's really amazing advice to end this call with. Don't be afraid to make
I agree.
mistakes. Yeah, take chances, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much
Thank
for
you
an
for having me.
incredible, empowering hour. And as we end this session, tell us where we can find you
Well,
and
you can find me
what's
on,
what's
yeah.
next and what's up next for you.
You can have find me on LinkedIn. I'm always
Okay.
here. If you want to talk about more about marketing, about branding, I'm doing a lot of things with the American Marketing Association.
Yes.
So AMA AMAToronto.com. We are always there. We have an amazing community of people that want to learn and share experiences and do things. And mostly people will find me doing consulting. So if they want to talk a little bit more about branding, whatever they need, they can just find me on LinkedIn.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you.
so much thank you so much for your time today, and I'm really looking forward to having you at York in our classroom
Yeah,
in a few weeks. So my students, I'm going to be certainly sharing this with them, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person.
see
It's
you
going to
the
be
12th.
amazing.
Yeah,
Thanks again.
thank you. Bye.